Locked On Jazz is your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. And we'll thank you very much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of every single day. I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA Insider. So I said there's two players that I really wanted to talk about today, and then also where the Jazz have gotten better. So Elijah Hughes and Jared Butler are the two players. But let's start with where the Jazz have actually gotten better. And the thing that's been most interesting to me that the coaches have talked about is Mike Conley's role. That with Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert now out for about 2.5 weeks, that Mike Conley has stepped forward. And one of the things they're talking about Mike Conley stepping forward with is vocal leadership, that this is really becoming his team right now out of necessity. And that when Donovan and and Rudy come back, that he will have a larger and louder voice. What's interesting to this is a parallel to the Denver Nuggets a few years ago that kind of goes in a different way, and it's a good lesson that every team is not the same. So Paul Millsap came to Denver. They signed Paul Millsap a few years ago, and Jokic went and took this huge back seat to Millsap in leadership because of his veteran status, and everyone kind of receded back. Jokic wasn't very good, and it wasn't until Millsap got hurt and Jokic came back and established himself. And then by the time Millsap came back into the fold, it was clearly Jokic's team. They moved forward and they've had great success. We'll see them tonight at 8 o'clock. The flip side for the Jazz was that I think we had a little bit of that same concept when Mike Conley came and Donovan didn't quite know. And then Mike was very acquiesced a great deal and kind of said, Donovan, it's your team. I'm not sure that this isn't a bigger burden on Donovan and Rudy than is productive for them at times. I actually think they've needed a little bit more of Mike's voice in the locker room. And now without Joe, whose voice is kind of a different type of voice, now without Joe, they really probably need more of Mike's kind of voice out there. Boyan's not going to talk. Jordan's kind of his own dude. Hassan is not that guy. Pashcall doesn't have that clout. So you really have, and Royce is going to kind of lead by example. So really your voices now are Donovan and Rudy, which are very different. And maybe it is time for Mike to become that prominent voice on this basketball team and a little bit of a bigger, more pronounced statement. So that's the first way in which I think the Jazz have gotten a good deal better internally. And then Mike's had a larger role. And we'll see that when Donovan and Rudy come back to this thing. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Built Bar. The coconut brownie chunk is my all-time favorite. You can get it at built.com. Probably eat one every day. White chocolate cookies and cream is back out and available today as a new flavor. Coconut marshmallow puffs are available. I actually have to say the Cheerio Puffs, which I think are off the board now, were stunningly good. And I loved them and was very, very pleased with that experience. My partner loves the caramel almond delight. The flavors are amazing. It's 100% real chocolate, 100% delicious. The macros are even more remarkable. It feels like you're eating a candy bar that's only 130 calories, 2.5 fat grams, 4 net carbs, 4 sugars, and 17 grams of protein. It's all at built.com. Use the promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off. Try out the new white chocolate cookies and cream, 130 calories, 17 grams of protein, and just 5 grams of sugar for something that tastes like a candy bar. It's available at built.com. The other way we've gotten better is Eric Pashcall's established himself as a viable player, which we now need. And I don't know how he fits in. He's the natural next player. Maybe Daniel House, if he makes the roster, is the natural next player for the Jazz with Joe Ingles out. I don't quite see where the Pashcall route is. I honestly thought that Pashcall was heading toward being the backup center if Hassan Whiteside's inconsistencies continued. I thought that was the most likely scenario by which you saw Pashcall get more playing time. Now, I don't know what that is. He's not a third ball handler. He is a pretty good isolation player against switch. If he can get the ball about 15 feet and take 1 or 2 dribbles, he's got enough power to be able to beat you. His defensive effort is strong. His rebounding numbers are not super. I was trying to look last night to see what we are when he is on the floor and Rudy's off the floor rebounding. to try to figure out at 6'6" whether or not it feels as though at 6'6" his rebounding is really, detrimental. Hassan Whiteside's rebounding has not been very good this year either. So you have to dig inside the numbers a little deeper. So when Pashcall is in as either our 4 or our 5 without Gobert or Whiteside, our rebounding numbers are fair. They're not brutal though. Um, they're 20, our defensive rebounding percentage is 36%. What's interesting is we have no offensive rebounding at all in those lineups, which is really a big part of what we do offensively. Our lineups with Pashcall, without Whiteside, or without Gobert are -10. They're not good. The defense has been bad. If we dig inside of it a little bit more, you can kind of begin to find some positives or some chances for positive. And I don't want to bore you with all that, but trust me, our defensive rebounding with Hassan Whiteside on the floor is gotten better. It's in the 60th percentile. Certain lineups we have, predominantly ones with Joe and Boyan together, we really just didn't rebound at all. And so that was problematic. Now, maybe, Joe is an inadequate rebounder for his position, and Boyan's not much better than that. And Royce is pretty good. So maybe we'll see Hassan's rebounding numbers pick up now with some roster changes in that sense. But so I think that Pashcall is the other one who has played better. And then I think we've gotten better at playing different style of defenses that we are forced to play, and different offenses we've been forced to play. So I do think there are areas where, in the midst of losing 11 of 13 games, and predominantly recently without Donovan and Rudy, where the coaching staff is right, that we've gotten better. Two players that I'm super interested in taking a look at are Elijah Hughes and Jared Butler. And I think that's to try to see how they can both develop, because I see them at the exact same spot in their timeline. So Elijah Hughes was the 39th pick of last year's draft. He did not get any workouts. He did not get summer league. He did not get training camp, and he did not get a G League. Really, for all intents and purposes, he didn't get any of those things. And so he went through a year of NBA, kind of seeing the league, understanding it, but not really getting much of an experience. He's 23 years old, so he's old. He went to East Carolina first, then transferred to Syracuse after sitting out a year, and he came in the draft after 3 years, a little older. In college, he was an elite level isolation player, took the most isolations of any player in the league. He averaged 19 points a game. He shot the three adequately at 34%. His actual senior year shooting was exactly the same number. His free throw shooting was pretty good, 81, which leads you to believe he has some touch and could develop the three. He just didn't do a lot of passing. He didn't do a lot of work with teammates, and he played a zone defense. So you couldn't, that's why he slipped to 39th. He couldn't have been couldn't have been further behind as a player. Last year, he plays 18 games of the entire season. He plays a grand total of 64 minutes. He's now only played 92 NBA minutes this year. He's only played 156 NBA minutes in 2 years. It's like absolutely nothing. And I just don't know what he is. He's interesting to me because he's 6'5" and 215 pounds, so he can play a little bit of a bigger two. He's got super heavy, strong legs, so he might be able to defend like Royce, but he also might be too slow to move defensively. And he has just played so little defensive work because he was in Syracuse's system for 2 years where they play that zone. And it's just hard. I just don't know on him. And it seems to me, he got 40 of those minutes in one game where he had 26 points. His last two outings, he was against Phoenix and Minnesota. Right now, when you evaluate him, you simply look at him as saying, well, if he made his shots, he was good. And if he missed his shots, he was bad. There's so much more to it. There's some things I've loved about him this year. He started a game earlier this year, I think, and didn't take a shot to open the game. It might have been a preseason game. He didn't play more than 4 minutes in any game except for 3 games all year. So there's just so little sample size. So if he could get some time right now, I'd be really curious to see if he's a regular rotation player. Is he a gunner? Does he play inside the system? Does he make the right reads? Can he defend if he gets put on an island? Does he switch correctly? Does he make the right reads? Those are things I don't know about him, but I do like at 6'5", 215, and his strength. I think there's a chance that he can make some plays. Now, Jared Butler, I'll dig into here in a second, but I want to tell you about PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best DFS game on the market. And You pick 2 to 5 players over under on their projections, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. It's you versus projected numbers. You can make your entries in 60 seconds or less. It's daily fantasy made easy. The app is PrizePicks. PrizePicks is safe and offers fast withdrawals. Use the award-winning app. It's in the App Store or Google Play, and you can do points scored, rebound, steals. You can insert whatever mixed sports entries if you want to do little soccer here, basketball here, something else. For a limited time, PrizePicks has an exclusive no-brainer offer for all of our users. Get $50 for free if a player in your first PrizePick entry scores a single point. You must use the code NBA. That's right. This is an exclusive offer available to Locked On fans. Sign up today. NBA is your promo code. $50 for free if a player in your first PrizePicks entry scores a single point. That's a PrizePick. All right, Jared Butler, everyone's favorite, because he was our draft pick this year. I actually see him exactly with the same amount of chance of making it as, and maybe as Elijah Hughes, because frankly, he's not as big. And I like length an awful lot and think length dictates whether or not you survive. So, Butler was a 40th pick in the draft, and comes off a much more storied career at Baylor. But he plays the 2 years at Baylor. He's a year younger coming out. He was 20 instead of 21. So he's only 21 years old right now. So he's still got, but he's 6'3" with a 6'4" wingspan. So he's 195. So he's considerably smaller. He's actually had a little bit of G League this year. Same thing with Elijah. But again, he's played a grand total of 4 games where he's played over 10 minutes this year. In those 4 games, he's against Toronto. He kind of did what everybody else did. He was 6 of 17. He did have 8 turnovers, but he had 17 points. I don't think anyone doubts his shooting. He's a good shooter. The question on him truly is size and defense, and that's going to take some time, and why I just think it's very unlikely that he can actually help us this year in the playoff setting. But is there some way for him to get a little bit more time and work out there that allows him to make some progress in that? His shooting the last 3 times he's played, or 5 of 9 the other night, 4 of 5, have all been good. He does have a great hesitation game. He has the great dribble drive game. Defensively, he picked up 2 fouls in the first 3 minutes. He has not defended particularly well in the G League from the reports that are from people that were there or scouts around the league. So we'll see. But it's another one where, can we get him just in a regular routine and figure out who he is as a player? He has to figure out who he is as a player. He came in the league certain out of Final Four, thinking he's a star, 25 point a game, the next Donovan Mitchell. That was everybody's question. Like, the fact of the matter is, he's probably needs to be, a 14-minute a night Howell Neto game impacting backup until anything else like that emerges for him. And I think if he could get some regular time and learn that, and we might need another ball handler and a little bit more of a scorer. But he's got to be able to defend. Right now, Trent Forrest is getting those minutes because Trent Forrest can defend, but he's not a pick and roll player. He's not a scorer. The two of them combined would be terrific. Trent's a little bigger, stronger, can defend. Jared's shooting awesome, but that's not what we have. So there might be a little bit of a run here for Jared where he gets an opportunity to try to see if he can get in the rotation and survive on a defensive end. All right, we'll continue playing. Do they have anything we want? Our weekly game or daily game moving toward the trade deadline. As we continue on Locked On Jazz, we'll look at 4 Western Conference teams, including the Houston Rockets and Eric Gordon, as we continue here on Locked On Jazz.